But like somebody's gonna be gambling, right?
Yeah, somebody is.
That's fact. You look at the
Mhm.
statistics, somebody's gambling right now.
I mean, there's whole cities built around it.
Exactly.
There you
Gambling.
go. Gambling cities. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me is Dylan and John. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Nice. So, the last few episodes have been something. We had our 3 episodes of Batman Tears. We had a sober Japanese Spider-Man episode where we watched 2 episodes of Japanese Spider-Man. And then we had another episode of us watching Japanese Spider-Man, but with a drinking game element involved. Hey, there's balloons. That one was new. That one was brand new. No, it's not doing anything for me.
Did I do that?
Nothing.
This isn't gonna make sense on Spotify.
Nope. So anyway, I don't remember much about those last 2 episodes of Japanese Spider-Man, but I want to say it has anything to do with the alcohol as much as the fact that a lot of those episodes were just the fucking same.
Well, that was part of the game.
That was part of the game.
Like half of it is tropes we've already seen before, and the other half is a very vague, not helpful introduction to whoever the villain's going to be that episode.
Yes.
Which happened to be a van.
Sometimes. Yeah. That truck that ran over that little boy.
Yep. Classic. Great stuff.
Yep.
And
oh boy. John, did you have any trouble the next day going to work?
No, I was okay in the end. Like
That's good.
I woke up super early, and that gave me a chance to drink some water and some coffee and eat lots of food until I was sort of in a good enough condition to go to work.
I know you were worried about that at the time.
Yeah. It wasn't a fun day in the office anyway, so.
Oh. Well, hopefully this will be a fun day in the office for us, because in the world of Marvel Comics, after 5 issues of teasing who the all-new Venom is, we finally have our answer. And the results are surprising, and some people found them to be kind of a what-the-fuck variety.
Baby Juggernaut.
It's Baby Juggernaut.
At last.
So, there we go. So, the Venom symbiote is kind of an odd creation because it has been passed around from person to person over the years. And we thought, before we get into our thoughts on the latest person to hold the Venom symbiote, we would go down the line and discuss each person that had a chance to be smothered by that sweet, sweet goo. Before we get into it, though, we've talked about Venom before. We've talked about the Tom Hardy Venom movies. We talked about Topher Grace playing Venom in Spider-Man 3. We've talked about Venom being on our overrated characters list before in the past. We have opinions on Venom. Is it possible for us to be unbiased as we discuss these topics?
Yes, I think it is possible.
Yes.
Will that happen? I don't know.
I don't know. I find myself not really caring enough about Venom, to be completely frank.
Well, that's part of it. I feel like if we were really invested in that character, we might be a little more biased. But now that none of us really care about Venom anymore, we're like, oh, whatever. This is just our opinion on this character. But yeah, maybe because we're not that invested, we will be a little bit more fair about it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
John, any thoughts on Venom before we get into it?
I think I'm in the minority among our group. I quite like the fact that they've done some different things with Venom over the recent years and kind of tried to, like, you know, expand the world of the symbiotes and stuff. I wouldn't say it's all been successful, but I think it's been a pretty good swing, and like some stuff has worked. So, you know.
I thought whenever you started that, you're like, I just want to say that I'm not like the other Smark Avengers guys, and that I am actually on the list of Venom hosts. I was Venom from 2009.
Amazing Spider-Man.
To early 2010. When they were the Venom symbiote, I was too evil for it.
Yeah.
Too evil for the Venom symbiote, and it ran away like a little dog, and I watched it go, and I said, someday I'm gonna kill that fucking thing, which proves just how evil you are if you're killing the Venom symbiote, you know. So maybe that's the thumbnail.
There we go.
John trying to kill
or
the Venom
is it going to be, or will it be that same picture of me as Venom that you've used on, I think, 3 thumbnails now?
I just couldn't be bothered drawing a new Venom.
So, to aid us in this discussion, Marvel.com, the official website of Marvel Comics, actually published an article on April 4th that lists and does a small breakdown on every Venom host. So I thought it would be great is to it will also be a chance for you guys to test your knowledge on Venom. I'm not a big Marvel reader, especially in the Spider-Verse of things. So this will be a very learning experience for me in general. My exposure to Venom is very limited to, I think, the episodes of the Spider-Man, the animated series, and parts of Spider-Man 3 that I watched. And I actually did read and enjoy the Agent Venom series by Rick Remender, but I got it because it was Rick Remender.
Hank Azaria was the voice of Eddie Brock and Venom in the Spider-Man.
Oh, no kidding. And that birdcage is a cage that has been lovingly constructed for us by Marvel.com with their article of every Venom host so far that will help act as a guide for us as we go through the world of the symbiote. So,
do we need to keep track of like how many of these me and John recognize?
Well, if you'd like to, I know you enjoy taking notes.
I love taking notes. I'm a note taker.
You are a note taker.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people call you the note taker.
I think that's what they call me. It's hard to hear when they drive past me so quickly, but it sounds like that's what they say. So I'm just going to keep a little tally of how many of these we've heard of. I would imagine we'll have heard of
You've heard of some
similar ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off from the very beginning, and that is, of course, Peter Parker.
I've heard of him.
The Venom symbiote was discovered in Secret Wars issue number 8 in 1984, where Peter mistook the symbiote for a way to repair his tattered costume after his fight against an army of supervillains on Battleworld. Back on Earth, he learned the symbiote was not only a sentient being, but one that was only trying to permanently bond with him in Web of Spider-Man number 1 in 1985. So, fun fact about the Spider-Man symbiote. I didn't realize Venom has been around since before I was born, or at least the symbiote.
Yeah.
I knew it was the 80s. I thought it was a little later than that.
Nah.
But no, any fond memories of Black Suit Spider-Man?
I liked it. I thought it was a cool visual, cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good angle, like a fun. It felt fresh, you know.
Yeah, like the whole gimmick as well with the suit sort of slowly sort of taking over as well. Like Peter getting dragged out in the middle of the night whilst he's asleep, and he's like on autopilot while the suit takes over, and then like waking up exhausted the next day, like not realizing what the hell's been going on, like stuff like that. Kind of,
yeah.
I don't know if that was like the plan all along when they decided to give him a cool new costume, or if it was just something that developed as they were going, but it gave the costume like a cool kind of twist rather than just being like, oh, here's some new duds for no good reason.
It made him strut down the street with his emo haircut, remember?
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you know if there was ever a point where this was going to be a permanent thing, that Spider-Man would stay in the black and white, or was he always eventually going to go back to the red and blue?
I feel like the way Marvel run is that it's always goes back to the status quo at some point.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. And to be fair, the black suit looks sleek as hell. It really did look cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like they knew once they put the new suit on him in space that like this isn't going to be a permanent thing.
Mm-hmm.
They might not have known that was what the end game was going to be, but I feel like once they did it, they're like, this will give us something to do for a couple of issues, you know?
So that was the first person to possess the Venom symbiote. The second person, also very well known, is Eddie Brock. After Spider-Man used church bells to basically disorient the symbiote, allowing it to separate from his body. It fell below to Eddie Brock, who was, I don't know, was he like praying or was he angry at God? I'm not as familiar with the scene. I've seen it played out on like the cartoon and in the Sam Raimi movie where Venom just, the symbiote just drops down on top of him.
I believe he was like contemplating suicide at that point because his life had basically been ruined because of Spider-Man had kind of exposed that
he was faking his stuff.
Well, like a story he'd written about the Sin Eater turned out to be false. So that sort of led to him being like ostracized in the newspaper business and whatnot. And he just blamed Spider-Man for all of the wrongs in his life.
Yes, he's been a big baby.
Yes.
So both because the symbiote, who was really upset that Spider-Man didn't want to stay his BFF, and Eddie Brock both had grudges against Spider-Man. Their bonding was very, very potent, and they took on the name Venom officially. And I know this has been a sticking point for Dylan, is the use of the Venom name.
Okay, how I talked about that on the show before?
I feel like we have.
Okay, because I feel like that's an important thing to talk about. And I don't know why nobody else thinks it's an important thing to talk about.
I don't think it really matters as much as you think it does.
I think it does. Don.
I mean, it's got to be called something. Why not Venom?
But But when it was on Spider-Man, it wasn't called Venom.
Yeah.
And when it went to Eddie Brock, it was called Venom because both of them felt Venom towards Spider-Man.
But it's just the name of the symbiote. It's the same as the Carnage symbiote is known as the Carnage symbiote, or the Toxin symbiote is known as the Toxin symbiote. It's just what it is.
When it moves from person to person, shouldn't it be called something different? Because this is different persons, different feelings, different emotion. Like Venom, Agent Venom is not the same as Venom. They're different characters, they're different personalities. And Spider-Man was a different personality than Venom. So why is Venom?
Because the symbiote is basically alive.
Right, but the one on Spider-Man is never like that's Spider-Venom. That's not from what it is. You know what I mean? No.
Because why would he be called Spider-Venom?
Because it's on Spider-Man and he's for the Venom symbiote, right?
Yeah, but Spider-Man predated it being called Venom.
Spider-Man has had the suit since then.
Barely.
He's had the suit since then. I believe he's had the suit recently.
He's had it like for
and nobody's like that's Spider-Man.
One comic or something where he like has to fight. What was it? Was that against Norman Osborn? I can't even remember now. But yeah, he basically he's not like been a permanent host since he originally wore the suit.
The Venom suit.
Yeah.
Which wasn't Venom whenever he wore it.
No, because it became Venom afterwards.
It became Venom whenever Eddie Brock wore it.
No, it didn't have an identity when Spider-Man wore it.
What?
It didn't have an identity when Spider-Man wore it.
But what I'm saying is the identity has changed after Eddie Brock. Whenever the Venom symbiote goes to somebody else, that's not Venom. That's a different entity. It has a different personality to it. Like I said, with Flash Thompson, that's not the same as Eddie Brock Venom. Those are two different things.
Yeah, Flash Thompson is completely different to Eddie Brock, but the Venom symbiote is still the same. Right,
but the personality would change because the personality is supposed to change with the person's bonding to.
No, I don't think it does.
You think the Agent Venom was the same as Eddie Brock Venom?
It's the same symbiote.
but different personalities.
No, I mean it sort of reflects it reflects the personality of the person who's wearing it, but it's still the same symbiote, so it's like got all the like personalities of everyone who's wore it. But like the symbiote now isn't as like cannibalistic as it was when Matt Gargan was wearing it. Like it's it's changed.
All right then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, guys, speaking of change, though, it was under Eddie Brock's partnership with Venom the Venom symbiote that they begin to take on a more heroic identity as Lethal Protector Venom, where he was acting a little bit more of an anti-hero. But any last thoughts on Eddie Brock before we jump to the next person who possessed the Venom symbiote?
I would imagine we're both going to say that Eddie Brock is Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all the rest of this is fun, but it's all, like, dressing it up.
Yeah,
you know I mean? It's like, you could put the mask on and pretend you're Sin Cara, but we all know who Sin Cara is. You know what I mean?
All right, so our next person who possessed the Venom symbiote for a time, and again, this is the Marvel.com official website, Ben Reilly, after Eddie Brock. The entry point says, even Peter Parker's clone Ben Reilly experienced the Venom symbiote, though not nearly as extensively as Peter. The symbiote disguised itself as the Blue Hoodie in his Scarlet Spider costume and attempted to fully bond with him, but Ben's strong will prevented the symbiote from asserting control.
I don't remember that. John, you remember that?
I have no recollection of that whatsoever.
He
Apparently
was Carnage. I don't remember him being
this-
Venom.
This occurred in either, and again, this is points to their editing, Venom Super Special #1 in 1995 or Spider-Man Super Special 1995. Could be either one. I don't know. They're editing. I'm assuming it's Venom Super Special #1.
Are we picking another fight with a different website now?
The official Marvel website seems to be the case because this is egregious. So any thoughts on...
We're already 3 people in already. We're like, this sucks.
Yeah. yeah. So any thoughts on Ben Reilly's flirtation with the Venom symbiote?
That doesn't even sound like it counts.
No.
Shouldn't, but it's the official Marvel.com website.
And they're never wrong.
No, it's their website. Like I said, this is their website.
Okay.
This is John's employer that we're talking about here.
John, why didn't you rewrite this? Did nobody like give this to you on your desk at some point and be like, "What do you think of this?"
No, clearly not.
Well, they're gonna get fired because this
Absolutely.
is shoddy workmanship. Gotta say, I don't like that. I've never heard that before. I don't think that's a real thing.
All right, our next one on the list is Anne Weighing.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Anne Weighing?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
John, you've heard of this one, right?
Yep.
All right. So during Venom's villainous years, Anne Weighing, Eddie Brock's ex-wife and mother of his son Dylan, helped Spider-Man against Venom and the murderous Sin Eater. When Sin Eater shot Anne in Venom, Sinner Takes All 1995 #2, the Venom symbiote bonded with her to prevent her from dying, and that bonded pair became She-Venom. After She-Venom killed several men who had violently wronged her in the past, Anne relinquished the symbiote back to Eddie, disgusted at what it had revealed about her.
She was the Venom symbiote a second time, I believe.
Was she?
She was trying to bust Eddie Brock out of prison, and Eddie got onto the phone with her, and the symbiote traveled down the phone line and bonded with Anne Weighing.
Oh.
I believe. I think it's only the 2 times, but I remember the second time definitely happening.
I remember the toy for this in the 90s. I remember the Lady Venom action figure.
What do you remember the most?
Because they called her Bride of Venom. I remember that name very vividly.
Bride of Venom, I can accept. It's different.
She-Venom, I don't care for.
Lady Venom, yeah, She-Venom doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Bride of Venom, I'm like, you can see the connection here. I'll allow it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All
right.
Well,
are you guys ready for our next host?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Angelo Fortunato?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. After Eddie successfully separated himself from the Venom symbiote, he decided to auction it off to the highest bidder in Marvel Knights Spider-Man #7. Yes. Mob boss Don Fortunato won the auction, purchasing the symbiote for his physically frail son Angelo, with the intention of making him more assertive and powerful. After bonding with Venom, Angelo set out to destroy Spider-Man to prove his worth. However, the Venom symbiote grew disgusted with Angelo after Spider-Man soundly defeated him. In Marvel Knights Spider-Man #8, is separated from the aspiring mobster mid-leap, sending Angelo plummeting to his death.
Yep.
That's brutal.
Very, very notable Venom appearance, because that it gives the illusion that the symbiote has a lot of sway over the person, and not vice versa. So you can see how like Venom and Eddie Brock work together because they had a very similar mindset. But with this Angelo Fortunato gimmick, you can see that the symbiote is clearly the one making the calls, and he's disappointed with the lackluster host that he's been given. That you know what I mean? That's the first kind of time you see a lot of symbiote actually having its own kind of personality, I guess. It's property a separate entity. Do you know what I mean?
That's interesting because he seemed to have only been Venom for 2 issues.
Yeah,
and you have this strong memory of him.
Oh yeah.
Well,
but
yeah, it was.
You remember how
pathetic
it was?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. The thing as well that the Marvel article doesn't really get into is like Eddie had cancer at this point, which is why he decided to like sell the symbiote to the highest bidder.
Yes.
Because he was just basically having like this crisis of faith and wanted to do something good before he died and like make all this money that he was going to give to charity.
Yes. Because I feel like that might come back later, depending on how this list goes.
Okay.
But
that was
So I was surprised.
Oh, sorry.
No,
even like the Angelo Fortunato guy, like there was like a bit of a thing there as well, because like I think his dad was the crime boss who basically felt like his son was too weak and cowardly and needed that extra thing to make him like more powerful so he could take over the business one day. So that's why he like bid $100 million to win the symbiote. And then but it's also why the symbiote ends up rejecting Angelo, because of the fact that he's like so scared of like, you know, the power of it and whatnot.
That killer instinct, he didn't have that.
Yeah. So that's why it rejects him, and then he basically falls to his death.
Do you know what would have been really good though? Is that they didn't really follow up on that too much, because I remember Don Fortunato was a big deal in the Clone Saga. He took over after Kingpin disappeared, and then in Marvel Knights you see him coming up, and like that could have been a cool. Let's explore more about Don Fortunato, like being disappointed in his family, or like what's he gonna do? How's he gonna pass on his crime business? Is it a business? Crime? Is it?
I guess, yeah.
That empire that he built, like, you know, where does he go with that? And they just dropped it after that, and that's a shame because it seemed like it was just a gimmick to lead the Venom symbiote to where I assume Corey's about to tell us where it went. But that could have been like a branch of path. You could have told that story as well. Wouldn't Don Fortunato like have had a beef against the Venom symbiote after that? Wouldn't that have been a good story to tell? You know, all forgotten about. And I don't even know if he's came back since then.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think he's just like, oh, my fucking son died. I guess I'm gonna go home. Like, wouldn't he be angry about that?
Oh well. Yeah, fuck. All right, well, our next Venom, you mentioned it, is Mac Gargan, a.k.a. the Scorpion.
I'm going to go ahead and say we've both heard of him.
Yep.
So after rejecting Angelo, the Venom symbiote approached Mac Gargan, the supervillain more commonly known as Scorpion, while he was in prison in Marvel Knights Spider-Man number 9. After bonding with Gargan, the new Venom made his debut as a member of the Sinister 12. Following the villain's team defeat, the Thunderbolts recruited Gargan in Civil War number 4. This Venom eventually joined the Dark Avengers, and when its leader, Norman Osborn, was overthrown in Siege, Gargan ended up back in prison, where he was separated from the symbiote for good. When I had my break from comics, because I went from being able to find them at yard sales to not being able to get them until I could buy them for myself, I jumped into the Dark Reign storyline, because that was just starting at Marvel. So that was my first exposure to the idea of like, oh, somebody else was Venom. That's really weird. It's
weird. Maybe he should be called something else, right? That's what he said.
Yeah, I do remember there was a toy of the Mac Gargan Venom that had a Scorpion symbiote part, like the tail.
Yeah, Well, they
but
did
I
that.
also remember, I remember this was the Venom that seemed the most happy to be a cannibal, which I don't know what that says about Matt Gargan. That he was totally cool with it.
Well, they say that, but like old Venom used to talk about eating brains all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was he talked about eating brains a lot. So Matt Gargan as Venom, he was like, I'll eat all of it. I'm not restricting myself to just the brain.
Yes.
There's so much good meat on the stomach, you know. I get why they did this. You know, if he leaves, if the Venom symbiote leaves Angelo Fortunato, who's a very wimpy guy who doesn't have a big killer instinct, and he goes to somebody. If we're looking at the lineage of the Venom symbiote, he goes to somebody that really fucking hates Spider-Man, which, for a point, has Venom. Eddie Brock hated Spider-Man, and Wayne, as a result of her being with Eddie Brock, hated Spider-Man.
Skype's just having fun with you today, Dylan.
Well, I tell you what, man, enjoy it because it's just not gonna last for too much longer.
Let's
try to get as many sparkle fingers as we can. So to keep that like hatred of Spider-Man and the symbiote together going, I get why it went to Matt Gargan because he's like criminally insane. He has a big thing against Spider-Man. He's got this like bloodlust. I don't think would have been a thing you would describe Matt Gargan as having before this.
No.
But certainly a lot of pent up anger and frustration.
Yeah.
That the Venom symbiote can take out. When you look at it like that, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I didn't like it as it went on because they were pushing it and they're like, we're sticking with it. This is it. I kind of got more into it, like the stuff with Venom and Anti-Venom that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that. I thought that was a great, fun storyline. Anti-Venom was Eddie Brock, who went to a homeless shelter that was run by Mr. Negative, and he was accidentally touched by Mr. Negative, and then that made whatever like part of the Venom symbiote that was still inside Eddie Brock turned him into Anti-Venom.
Dylan,
yes,
are you suggesting that Eddie Brock got touched by a man and white goo came out of him?
I don't think I'm suggesting
that. That's what happened.
I think I'm stating that as a fact.
Yeah.
Was that term used at one time, John? Love custard? All right, cool. Keep going.
We've used a lot of different terms.
We certainly have.
For the Siemens. You know? We just love talking about it.
I just want it on record. I didn't bring it up this time as well.
No, that was just too good of an opportunity to pass.
But do you see the way Corey framed it to make it seem like it was, John, was it you that said love custard? I'm like,
listen, that stayed with me for a reason, John. I don't know why, but it's your fault.
Well, it's hard to get that staying out, really. John, what did you think about Matt Gargan? See how I pulled it around to stop us talking about Steven again?
I mean,
yeah, good little segue.
I enjoyed it. I think the fact that it was a more sort of animalistic Venom as well, like a bit more uncontrollable, put him at odds with like the situations he found himself in as well, like working with the Thunderbolts, which was he was sort of getting zapped and like had to sort of rein in those tendencies, or try to at least. And then obviously working with Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers as well, where he basically became like the team's version of Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Like that was like, interesting stuff to play with this version of this character. And yeah, it led to some good stuff.
Yeah, like by the end of it, I didn't totally hate it. Like I understood why they did it.
It never felt permanent, but it did feel like this one could go a while, and it feels like it kind of did. I mean, it lasted for
a couple of years.
Jeez, 5 years, 5-6 years.
That's how I felt about it. Like it's not going to be permanent, but they stuck with it long enough for you're like, okay, this has been the status quo for a while,
So our next Venom host that was not Venom for terribly long, Carol Danvers.
Wait,
have you heard of this one, Corey? Wait. Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Yeah, Captain Marvel.
And Miss Marvel. John, have you heard this one?
Is this during the storyline where Doctor Doom had like a bunch of Venom symbiotes in like satellites or something, and they all got free and came down to Earth?
No, it is not.
All
Norman
right,
Osborn's
that we didn't know that one.
Norman Osborn's dark reign over the American intelligence community toppled with a crash in Siege, where the Dark Avengers' wrongdoings were exposed and the team were soundly defeated. When Captain Marvel confronted Matt Gargan's Venom, the symbiote overwhelmed her and sensed her immense energy and power that she would make the perfect host in Siege Spider-Man #1. Fortunately, Carol quickly regained her senses and repelled the symbiote, leaving it to rebond with Gargan for the remainder of the battle. So she might have been the symbiote for about 4 or 5 panels by the sound of it.
Oh, fuck me, dude. Wait, what issue was this? Siege
Spider-Man #1.
Siege Spider-Man.
All right. Any thoughts on Carol Danvers' run as Venom?
No.
I think we both blinked and missed it.
Yeah, I think so. All right. So next up, officially, is Flash Thompson, the aforementioned Agent Venom.
Yes.
So after the government confiscated the Venom symbiote from Matt Gargan, they bonded it to combat veteran Flash Thompson. Taking on the moniker Agent Venom, Flash used the symbiote as a force for good. As Agent Venom, Flash undertook Black Ops missions throughout the Marvel Universe. He also limited his exposure to the symbiote to 48-hour intervals in order to avoid making the bond permanent. During this time, Agent Venom became a member of the Secret Avengers, the Thunderbolts, and even the Guardians of the Galaxy as he expanded his mission to the cosmos. So yeah, Agent Venom was the one I read through that run with Rick Remender as the character. I remember like it was also a Flash Thompson kind of like, I don't want to say down on his luck necessarily, but it was
no
sort of like no legs.
No legs.
And also like it was causing the Black Ops was a complete secret from everybody in his life. He was keeping it from his estranged wife Betty as well, about where he was going and where he had been. Because I think she just thought that he was doing like goodwill tours, like as a member of like the USO. If memory serves. Yeah. So anyway, also that run gave my favorite version of Jack-O-Lantern, which I thought was a perfect character for Rick Remender to write.
Okay, now did we ever figure out who that Jack-O-Lantern was?
No.
Okay.
No. He was never given a name.
So he just a Jack-O-Lantern turned up and was a bitch and then died.
Yeah. So yeah, he was basically a kid that the crime boss had adopted, and like basically allowed him to keep doing his sociopathic tendencies, and then Deadpool shot him. That was the run of Jack-O-Lantern. But any thoughts on Agent Venom before we move on?
I thought that part of the reason they did Agent Venom was to give Flash Thompson his legs back. Because I feel like they get. I don't know if he is. No, I don't think so. I don't think he got his legs back though. I think he did.
I think he has prosthetics, but I don't think he has his legs back.
I believe that's correct, but it gave him legs as part of the symbiote.
Yes, as a symbiote, yeah.
Before he was Agent Venom, he was in a wheelchair.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, "You did good service for us. Want to do some more service, but we're going to torture you while you do it." And he was like, "That's what being in the U.S. Army is all about, sir. Sign me up. More torture, please." So like, all right, you get the bond with this fucking homicidal symbiote for 48 hours. Is that all right?
Enjoy these memories it's going to give you for some reason.
And he's like, "But I can play hopscotch again, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure." But he will.
To your heart's content.
But it will try to it'll try to make you kill people. He's like, "Yeah, but hopscotch though."
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Flash. I feel like you're taking a weird angle with this. You're not even thinking about the implications, all the murders that he's going to try to make you do. You know. Well, like, I could put shoes on again. Like, you wouldn't have to. The Venom symbiote will just make you shoes. He's like, "What? That's even better."
Well, somebody else that was associated with the United States government that also had the Venom symbiote, Thunderbolt Ross.
John?
Say what?
Okay, That's another one we didn't know.
So during his search for allies in the impending battle against Blackheart, General Thunderbolt Ross, in his gamma-radiated alter ego as the Red Hulk, crashed into into Flash Thompson's apartment to recruit Agent Venom. To prevent the Red Hulk from harming Flash, the Venom symbiote temporarily bonded with Ross until he discarded it and the meeting de-escalated. Later, during a showdown with Blackheart, the symbiote bonded again with Ross again to augment his powers against the demon.
That doesn't seem like it makes any sense. Right? Like if you were the Venom symbiote and you're trying to go to get, like you already said the bit with Carl Danvers where it saw that it had the possibility to like.
Yeah.
So if you were like the Red Hulk and the symbiote bonded with the Red Hulk, wouldn't that combination make the symbiote go, dude, this fucking rips. This is it. This is the power I was looking for. This fucking guy is gonna make me the head boss of the whole Earth. Right? Like why would he do that just to see a Flash Thompson? That doesn't make any sense. The symbiote would want to be part of the Red Hulk, right?
Well, that's why it jumps on the Red Hulk to begin with, but then the Red Hulk sort of calms down, and then I guess, like, you know, he loses his power.
But he would get it back, though, and that power would be exponentially more. And the symbiote could influence Thunderbolt Ross to make that Red Hulk come out more, so that he would be Red Hulk and Venom and be more of a killer than Flash Thompson. He didn't kill a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
Despite being in the United States Army.
Well, there you go. So, up next, though, another name that might make you scratch your head, Otto Octavius.
John?
No. I don't remember this.
Familiar. Describe the scenario.
After Otto Octavius hijacked Peter Parker's body to become the superior Spider-Man, he mistook Agent Venom and its host as villains and battled the symbiote. Octavius separated the symbiote from Flash Thompson only for it to escape and bond with him instead, effectively making him the superior Venom. When the Avengers staged an intervention over his increased brutality against criminals, Octavius battled the team. He eventually recognized that the symbiote had affected his mind, so he turned to Flash, who helped them separate in Superior Spider-Man issue number 25.
That bit sounded familiar. Because there was a bit where the Avengers were like questioning who he was. And he couldn't figure out a way to like come out of it. So I feel like the way that they did it was him going, oh, the Venom symbiote twisted my mind. But I don't remember it enough to be able to say that that is correct.
Mm.
John, I imagine you're the same, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm going to put that down as we didn't remember it.
Okay. Well, if you have fun here, here's another one. Lee Price.
I remember that.
Yes, I know this.
Awesome.
Yes. It's very infamous, I would say.
In an unseen incident, the Venom symbiote separated from Flash Thompson and made its way to the Black Cat's criminal gang.
How unsatisfying is that, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Unseen incident.
Just at some point, no, Flash Thompson didn't know it was done. After all the shit that the Venom symbiote did, poor Flash Thompson, he just one day he's like, nah, fuck it. See you later.
Yeah.
The symbiote bonded with one of Black Cat's henchmen, Lee Price, and tried to continue his heroic activities, only for Lee to assert control and steer it back to full-on villainy in Venom number 1. After Spider-Man and Eddie Brock defeated them in Venom number 6, the symbiote was forcefully separated from Lee before he was murdered by a resurrected Cletus Cassidy.
Okay. I hated this a lot.
Really?
I hated it. I hated it so much.
How come?
I hated it because the way they played it in the comics was like, Venom's got this cool new fucking guy, and this guy that he's attached to is so scary. Even the Venom symbiote's scared of him. And I'm like, oh, well, that must be a pretty cool deal. Who is it? It's just some fucking prick that you've never heard of before.
Just some guy.
Just some ass guy. And I'm like, this is nuts. You know how you were talking about, like, when you know it's not going to stick around? Mm. Whenever they were like, the new Venom symbiote host is Lee Price, I'm like, that's not sticking around. Mm-hmm. That's not at all sticking around. This is just a waste of time until he goes back to Eddie Brock.
There you go.
100%. This is like, fucking, what a waste of time this is.
And I guess it was a means to an end, though, to get it back onto Eddie Brock.
They just, but it's the same way that they just manufacture in the WWE. They would manufacture a big, strong-looking heel to fight John Cena. Like, where did this guy come from? Nowhere. Suddenly, he's a big deal. He's gonna get beaten by John Cena, and he's gonna disappear back to OVW. That's what's gonna happen, and that's what happened with Lee Price. He came in out of nowhere, No backing, no nothing. He just appeared and became the Venom symbiote for, like you said, 6 issues. And then they're like, well, that's the end of that. And he goes away again. And like, well, that's, and then fucking, what I like is they kept trying to make Lee Price into like he's bonded with the symbiote now. He's kind of like one of the guys. I'm like, this is, you should just let this alone. You know what I mean? I didn't like it.
All right. Well, next up, Tell Car.
What?
Tell Car.
Tell Car what?
Yeah, what are we telling the car?
Just telling him.
Tell him.
Venom's
Venom's out there.
Yeah. In Venom First Host, it explored Venom's history before his fateful encounter with Spider-Man, providing the symbiote with a cosmic backstory. Shortly after the Venom symbiote spawned on the Clintar homeworld, the Kree recovered it and bonded it to warrior Tell Car so he could infiltrate the Skrull military. After Tell Car's deception was discovered, Ronan the Accuser took him into Skrull custody and separated him from the symbiote, which eventually ended up on Battleworld, where it first encountered Spider-Man.
Okay, so John, I just wrote that we didn't know that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is the same creative team that gave you Lee Price, by the way, of Mike Costa. What I'm learning is that Dylan is not a fan of Mike Costa.
He needs to be stopped.
All right, next up, Malekith the Accursed.
Was that during
that one
the
War
familiar. Of the Realms?
John, you were correct.
Yeah, that one sounded familiar.
So after learning about All Black, Gore the God Butcher's god-killing blade forged from a living symbiote, the evil dark elf Malekith the Accursed desired one of his own. To accomplish this, Malekith stole the Venom symbiote and tortured it until it submitted to his will in War of the Realms #4. He also enchanted portions of the symbiote bond with several of his associates to form his own personal strike force. However, the Thor Corps, proved too much for them. They defeated the Dark Elf and freed Venom so it could reform and find a less manipulative host.
Yeah, that definitely rings a bell.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to say about that.
All right, so our next one, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
This I feel like I remember. I remember Venom in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I remember him in the group, but I don't remember.
Yes, I don't remember who he was, but I remember him being in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
While Agent Venom worked with the Guardians of the Galaxy, the symbiote became a liability for the entire team when it separated from Flash and began acting erratically. It then started bonding with individual members of the Guardians, starting with Groot, before ultimately bonding with Drax. Controlling Drax, the symbiote traveled to the Clintar homeworld where it was purified and restored to normal. Afterwards, it safely took Flash as a host again in Guardians of the Galaxy #23.
What do you mean restored back to normal?
I guess it was acting erratically for reasons. And those reasons were fixed.
Who wrote this article, real quick?
This was written by Sam Stone. Surely
Sam
not
Stone.
an alias.
Well, kid, you've just found yourself on our list.
We keep finding people on the list. So any thoughts of the Guardians of the Galaxy? But this was Brian Michael Bendis, by the way.
Our favorite.
I fucking hated Bendis' Guardians run.
Well, why? Sounds great, doesn't it?
Because I think he had his own idea for how he wanted it to be, and then the MCU Guardians was an entirely different being, so then he had to redo all of his shit.
It was better.
Yeah. I did recently find out that it was based, that James Gunn took a lot of inspiration from Farscape into Guardians of the Galaxy, and that makes all the sense in the world. So if you ever want to watch a really fun science fiction TV show that the Henson Company did all of the alien effects for, Farscape. It's really good.
Okay.
So let's move on to Mercurio, the 4D man.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that's not to know for me.
All right. The cosmic supervillain Mercurio, the 4D man, has battled everyone from Thor to Captain Marvel, but he found a different fight in his hands when he confronted Agent Venom. After Agent Venom became the Space Knight, he intervened in an interplanetary conflict involving Mercurio and Venom's Space Knight #5. Mercurio separated the symbiote from Flash and briefly bonded with it, but it ultimately rejected him and returned to Flash, who defeated the unhinged despot.
Don't like it.
Oh, good for him.
All right. Next up, Mysterio.
Okay. So technically, we have heard of this.
Yes.
Have we?
Well, we heard about it about half an hour ago.
Oh yeah, okay.
Realistically, me and John were like, I've never heard of this before.
Mm-hmm.
But this was spoiled for us before we started recording.
Mm.
So, for the record, I'm gonna write down we hadn't heard of this.
All right. So in the series Symbiote Spider-Man, it revealed some previously untold history about Spider-Man's early days with the Venom symbiote. For instance, during this time, Mysterio tasked Black Cat with stealing a piece of the symbiote for him to examine, only for the Kingpin's henchmen to interrupt. To escape from this sticky situation, Mysterio temporarily bonded with that piece of symbiote in Symbiote Spider-Man #4.
And then what happened?
That's all it says.
Doesn't sound good. Because you would think if you bonded Mysterio to Venom, you could tell some stories.
There's this period of time where they would, like, Marvel would go to Peter David and they'd be like, hey, Peter, can you do a mini series basically picking up something you used to write and just act like nothing has happened since then? And we'll just say these are untold stories from that time period. Because he did that. He did Maestro Hulk. I think he did Joe Fixit. He did Genis Vale, Captain Marvel. Like he was doing a bunch of little miniseries, and that was one of them, was Symbiote Spider-Man. But next up, Dylan Brock.
You've heard of them?
Yes.
Yes.
While Anne Weying was bonded to the Venom symbiote, it combined her and Eddie Brock's genetic material along with trace amounts of the symbiote itself. As a result, Anne became pregnant with their son, Dylan Brock. Dylan's unique heritage allows him to telepathically control symbiotes. After Null's defeat, the Venom symbiote initially watched over Dylan as his protector. When Jack-o'-lantern mortally wounded Dylan during a mugging, the Venom symbiote bonded with him to save his life, making him the new Venom in Venom #35. So he was an immaculate conception via symbiote DNA?
No. I think they revealed that Anne was pregnant when the Venom symbiote attached itself to her, and then that's when it kind of stuck its codex in the baby. And
yeah, I just
you don't want to start sticking your codex in a baby.
So as the way it's written, it sounds like the symbiote bonding came first, and as a result of the symbiote bonding, she became pregnant. Like that was how the writing seems to imply that occurred.
I'm not sure about that. But
we've had our issues with this writer for a long time.
So any thoughts on Dylan Brock? He's been the most recent Venom as of late.
Wow, not the most recent Venom.
At the moment.
I mean, it makes sense, I guess, right? Like keeping the family in terms of sharing your symbiote. It makes sense. But once they introduced Eddie Brock and a kid, we're all kind of like, okay.
All right.
It's a matter of time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, in this, it all played into the whole Null storyline as well, and the King in Black, because basically Dylan had sort of similar powers to Null, where he was able to control symbiotes and stuff, and so that became kind of like a big plot point in the end of that big storyline.
Yes, but I didn't really like that storyline either. We'll talk about that later.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the most recently revealed host of the symbiote, as we discussed at the top of the hour, Mary Jane Watson.
John, have you heard this?
I have not heard of Mary Jane Watson. Who is this person?
This feels like the setup to a Jay Leno bit where you're just like, have you heard about this? Have you heard about this?
Yeah, but that's Mary Jane Watson. Do you ever notice that he got foot-long fangs? What's that about?
And then there's Kevin Eubanks with his guitar in his lap, just kind of going, "Are you crazy?"
Jay Leno, it's pretty good, right?
Jay, you got it. Anyway, yes, that was our recreation of the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. John, who are you playing?
I'll be the couch.
All right, there you go.
We're gonna have to sit on you.
Would be the first. So, following Venom War, in which Eddie Brock and his son Dylan fought over ownership of the symbiote, Venom selected a new host. The The mystery of the host's identity unfurled across the first 5 issues of All New Venom, where Luke Cage, Rick Jones, Madam Mask, and Robbie Robertson were all eliminated as potential hosts. As revealed in All New Venom number 5, Mary Jane Watson has become the symbiote's latest host, although it is yet to be seen how this came to be.
And it's probably going to be very unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of get into that.
Okay.
A lot of what's been going on in Spider-Man, I pick up, has not been terribly popular. People did not like the introduction of Paul as Mary Jane's boyfriend, who she spent a year trapped in a parallel universe with imaginary children with. People have not cared for the jackpot identity that you had to explain to me, John, as like Paul is an inventor as well and came up with a superhero identity for her.
I think that was it. Yeah, I don't know.
And so, like I said, people have been just a lot of really weird decisions have been happening over in the Spider-Man world. And this is going back to Ben Reilly once again becoming full evil as Chasm.
Yeah.
And now we also have Eddie Brock with a symbiote again, but this time it's Carnage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Flash Thompson is anti-Venom now.
I think so.
Yeah. I think Toxin is dead. I don't know.
He'll be back.
He'll get better.
They all come back.
So, like I said, I've been getting a lot of impressions that people have not been really wild about what's been going on in the Spider-Man world for a good bit.
Well, we haven't. I think we've been pretty vocal, or at least I have, where I haven't really been enjoying a lot of the more recent Spider-Man stuff. And then you hear something like this, where they're like, hey, who do you think the big reveal of Venom's going to be? That's right, Mary Jane Watson. That just makes long-term fans of Spider-Man just kind of shake their heads and go, this isn't what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
This is not what it's supposed to be. Yeah. I get trying to shake up characters like that, but they've been trying to shake up Mary Jane for a while, like you said, with the new boyfriend and the jackpot thing. And like they're trying stuff, but you could like, how is this better than the Mary Jane of the 90s where she was married to Peter Parker and was like his rock and was like a really supportive, lovely person and a great different voice to have in that comic? Like, why was that character so bad and this character where they're just throwing stuff at her to see if it works? Why is that better? You know what I mean?
Well, it kind of goes back to that weird thing with One More Day, where it seems that there's this weird idea that Peter Parker cannot be
alive,
good, unless he is like down on his luck Peter Parker, and like I guess people like he's had it too good for too long with the smoking hot model wife and the happy loving relationship.
Yeah. Which I don't agree with, because Norman Osborn stole his kid and presumably killed that kid. We're not totally sure what happened there. Like he's been through some hardships, and the hardships he's been through now have been just silly and weird. And it doesn't make you feel sympathetic for Spider-Man, you know? But I also would argue that even whenever he was married to Mary Jane, there was, I feel like there's more sympathy there, because wouldn't you feel as a married man who's trying to protect his wife and himself that there is more sympathy there, because he's got a lot on his plate, a lot more pressure. He's doing it for other people as well. He's not just being a selfish man. Wouldn't you say that that's more impactful and more interesting than just him as a solo guy going out and just fucking punching guys in the face? You know?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't? I mean basically what we're tuning this down to is none of us like Mary Jane being Venom.
Well, I don't think, like, after everything she's sort of been through, like watching all the hardships that Peter's gone through being Spider-Man and everything, like, why would she want to be a hero? Why would she want to like put on a super suit or whatever and go and put herself in that situation?
Because
like,
but you would say that. Are we gonna say the same thing?
Go for it. You first.
Well, you would think that if they are putting her in that position, then logically the overall move would be for her to reconcile with Peter Parker and go, I have been a hero. I have had the responsibilities that you've had placed on me, even to a minute degree. I now empathize with what you went through, yada yada. Doesn't that seem like the only reason they would do that is to circle back to Peter and Mary Jane, right?
I mean, the theory that I saw people suggest is that basically Marvel, they have no interest in doing a Peter Parker Mary Jane thing, but the Mary Jane character is so popular that they have to keep her around. So it's like, that's why we're doing these various different things to keep her around, because even when it wasn't hinting that she was the new Venom, she was in the book because she's basically taken Dylan in. Because like, well, yeah. So like that was, yeah.
That's the hook, right? Isn't that why people are like, this is going to be a very temporary thing, because Venom is taking over Mary Jane as a way to get back to Dylan Brock?
Yeah, I've already seen that I already saw some panels of Dylan like pleading with the Venom symbiote to come back to him, and the Venom symbiote saying that no, it has to be this way for whatever reason.
But it's like a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's not sticking with her for very long.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, there's like this weird thing with comics where it's like, do the characters need to grow and change, or do they need to be reverted and stay the same for the sake of, storytelling? It's hard to tell. Because it's like, this is not, a lot of the more popular, larger characters it's not a movie. There's never going to be an ending. They have written the definitive final story for Spider-Man, but they're still putting out Spider-Man books every month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do we write ourselves in a corner if we allow the characters to grow and change too much? It's kind of like why they always create new young X-Men, but they never rotate the old X-Men out.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a reason, like when you get an X-Men comic book, it's going to be like Cyclops, Wolverine, Jean Grey, Rogue, Gambit, and such, because those are the characters people want to stick around and read.
Yep.
And like if you cycled them out to replace them with like Cannonball and Moonstar and Sunspot and shit from the New Mutants, Horse Girl, I sent you that cover of that horse looking real scared in a cave, didn't I?
You did.
Amazing.
What's funny about Horse Girl?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's just that kind of thing of like, do you let the characters grow, or do you keep them where they are and just rotate stories? And I think that's where the original idea of we need to put Peter Parker back to not being married to open up possible stories, that was such an unpopular decision because a lot of people really liked Peter with Mary Jane.
Yeah. I agree.
It was earned,
Yeah. It felt like a good, like a permanent victory for a guy that has been down in his luck for so long. Like, that's a nice thing to do to a character. You're allowed to do that sometimes. Characters are allowed to have something nice happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of just a relentless fucking more tragedy, like they're allowed to have one good thing in their life.
Well, it reminds me of, like originally Claremont was trying to retire Cyclops by creating Madeline Pryor. Like Cyclops was supposed to be retired in Alaska with Madeline Pryor and their baby. But, Marvel editorial was like, nope, we need Cyclops around. So have him abandon his wife and child and look like a dickhead.
And they did, and nobody noticed. So maybe they weren't that wrong.
So, yeah, no. I mean, like I said, I think it's where we're kind of stuck. And it reminds me, I was really, of the choices that they put out there, who could it be? I really, in my bones, thought they would pull the trigger and have it be Luke Cage for some reason. Really? I don't know why. I thought maybe it would give Luke Cage something new to do because the character's been really stale since Bendis stopped writing him. Because I saw like the options, and I was like, Luke Cage is an option. Madam Mask. Why on earth would they do something like that? Rick Jones is always subbing in for people.
Yeah.
Like Rick Jones was Abomination for a while, and Rick Jones was like half of Captain Marvel in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So like Rick Jones is always getting subbed in. So I felt like that was too obvious of an option. But yeah, I would have thought they would have gone with Luke Cage for some reason. I feel like that could have been interesting. And it's Al Ewing writing, who I think would really do well with Luke Cage as a character. But
We haven't seen a black Venom so far, so.
But no, we went with
diversity.
We went with Mary Jane in a move that feels like you guys said temporary.
Yeah, very.
Someone pointed out like Mary Jane knows how this Venom symbiote has targeted him and tortured him and stuff. Like, she knows this is not a force for good, you know?
Yeah. She's been terrorized by the Venom symbiote herself as well. So
correct.
Yeah.
But also, now that it's bonded with her, she would know all that firsthand.
All the memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she would know like what kind of a vicious, horrible fucking thing this is that tried to kill her and her former husband on numerous occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
The dozens, hundreds of people that it has killed.
On the way especially trying to kill Peter Parker.
Yeah. Or, I mean, just, also, like, I mean, if it shares memories, you would think it's like, all right, cool. You know this thing eats people. Like, Matt Gargan ate people while as Venom. Like, does that mean, are you feeling peckish? You know?
She's a woman that's very familiar with the Scorpion as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, wouldn't she be like, I don't want the Scorpion's memories in my head. I don't want that. Because you're going to see all this shit about him eating people. And, like, I didn't want that. Like, it doesn't seem like from a character perspective that this would be a good fit.
So we know that there are other symbiotes out there. We talked, you mentioned a couple of them by name, Toxin, Anti-Venom, Carnage, Rascal, who is Red Goblin. Mm-hmm. So we know that each of the symbiotes kind of have their own vibe, their own personality. It just feels like Venom is just if you wanted to do something like that, it feels like Venom's the wrong one. Like, this will sound weird to say, but Rascal would probably be the best symbiote for Mary Jane.
Like, would have worked.
Toxin, yeah.
Like, not a full-on villain, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Rascal's like a child.
Yeah, like
and Mary Jane has a maternal instinct. That's part of the reason why her psyche is all kind of weird is her imaginary children that she was taking care of with Paul. They disappeared, as imaginary children tend to. She would have had this little symbiote, on her all the time that she could mother.
Problem solved. But
they could stop. They could stop drawing Normie Osborn as like a teenage character when he's supposed to be like 7.
Yeah.
That made reading Red Goblin really weird. So I'm like, how old is this kid supposed to be?
48.
Yep, 48.
48 years old.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on Venom before we wrap it up?
Both me and John knew 11 Venoms and didn't know 7 Venoms. Although I feel like those numbers are probably a little off, but that's what I wrote down. So overall, we knew most of the Venoms, but there was a lot more than we thought we wouldn't recognize.
Yeah, I think a lot of those shouldn't count though, because it's like literally
a couple of panels
wearing them.
Captain Marvel one doesn't count.
Definitely.
I feel like the Ben Reilly one doesn't count because it was disguised as his hoodie. It didn't bond with him.
That doesn't count. That's bullshit. So really, just 5 that we hadn't heard of.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird ones for sure. But yeah, no. I suppose we should wrap things up. I got nothing else to talk about Venom related.
About the dinosaurs.
No, we didn't talk about the dinosaurs.
No, you talk about
they were talking about people, not animals. Or we would have also talked about the weird Venom horse that was running around during Venom War.
There was a dog, wasn't there? Wasn't there a dog?
I'm sure there was.
Pretty sure there was.
Why wouldn't there be?
You got a dog. Yeah.
So, John, what's your movie count at?
I am up to 272.
272.
Yeah.
And we talked about your rating on the Birdcage that you don't remember watching. So if a viewer wants to look up that rating of the Birdcage and see what you forgot to think about this movie, where can they find that?
They can find it on Letterboxd at Big John Bowski, all one word.
Dylan, you got anything to promote? Or, sorry, Wilbert Manifest. Great name. Oh, my God. Wilbert Manifest.
Wait. Is that still what's coming up?
It says Wilbert Manifest.
Wilbert Manifest was like last week. I changed it before I came on here.
No, I didn't see that one. This one was...
fuck, dude. Well, okay, so Wilbert Manifest should have appeared on the 2 Spider-Man episodes we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed it tonight before I came on, so it's a different name. So
nah, didn't take.
Maybe I'll leave it till next week, and then you'll see tonight's name for next week. Wilbur Manifest, I was very happy with. Very happy.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
This one's not as good.
But anything you want to pitch?
No, I don't think so.
All right, there you go. I have the other show, Large Little Cups. I've been updated in a couple of weeks now because life is hectic. But enough about that. We will see you all next time, as long as one of us doesn't get bonded to the Venom symbiote on the way there.
Again.
Happens a lot.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Sounds like you were like falling down a well.
Yeah, falling out a cliff, yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta mix it up, dude. You gotta mix it up, you know.
If only I had the Venom symbiote to save me.
But it saves you.